I'm Miriam Joy and welcome to my studio. We're going to be doing our string Easter eggs, and I'm going to be kind of giving them a different look, kind of more of a stained glass type of look with our embroidery thread or your crochet thread. So let's get started. Okay, we're going to start with our balloons, and these are the little small balloons. These are the ones that you make water bombs out of. So you can pick up, I think they're 100 in the bag at the dollar store, and blow it up just as big as you want your piece. And I want these pieces smaller, and you can do different size. And it also depends on what little fun things you can find inside of these. I found the chick and the rabbit at Joann's, and I got them for sale at 50% off. I found a little bit bigger bunny at the Dollar Tree, so you'd want a bigger balloon for him, and I actually would prefer him even a little bit larger than the balloon we have there. So kind of depending on what you have. You have your different embroidery floss that you can use, but you're probably going to have to use more than one. So if you were doing a multicolored one like the one we have here, that would be fine to use as well. So you've got all those different options. And when I go to thrift stores, I look for embroidery thread. They seem to have it quite a bit because it's kind of considered an older craft that was used a while ago. So these seem to appear really inexpensive at the thrift store. So look for fun colors there. Now I'm going to be doing mine a little bit different. When you're working with Mod Podge, you roll it, not shake it. You don't get the bubbles. And we're going to put just a light layer on, and this is going to hold our first thread piece on. And I'm working on a tray. You could work on a piece of paper or whatever to keep your Mod Podge, because it ends up being like glue off of everything else. And we want kind of a wet layer here. You don't want it to dry out before you get your thread on it. So, and I use an old brush. I probably use my old yucky brushes more than I do my new nice ones. So, now, unless you want to cut the top off, try to go over the top of the little part there. And if you try to put the thread on before you put the Mod Podge on, it's just going to slip around, and it's not going to do very fun. I'm going to throw my thread on the ground and just start wrapping. And I like mine pretty thick, and there's all kinds of ways you can do it. That's totally up to you. We can do it straight up and down, kind of like that. And like I said, if you want to cut that guy and have a hole in the top, you can, but if not, get him covered down. I'm still not there yet. So you can pull him out later without having a hole there. And like I said, putting the Mod Podge on first just holds that really, really well. Instead of having to run your Mod Podge or your thread through the glue or starch or whatever you're using, this just holds it in place. We're going to do that a little bit later. And the Mod Podge stays behind, and like I was saying in the beginning, it kind of gives it a stained glass look. And I like to have mine a little bit thicker thinner on the thread. And there's some really cool variegated ones thread out there. There's a purple and white that I love. So if you want something like that, go to your local craft store and just look for those. But if, like I said, if you had done this before we put any on here, you'd be slipping and sliding and your thread would not stay on by itself. So and once you decide that you've got on as much as you want, and I kind of look at my spool here, go ahead and end it. And what I'm going to do is just take my Mod Podge and I'm really going to apply it on. You not only want to get the first layer, but you've got to get down there and get all of those layers. So it's important to get that really lots and lots of Mod Podge on there. And don't be afraid to just really apply it. And once that dries, you're going to see you get that Mod Podge that looks like glass through it. So that's how that is different from that. So set him aside once you've got him all coated. Let him really, really dry, and then we'll take it from there. Another thing is once you've got this all covered up, don't set it straight down. Put it on something like this guy with a circle that's opening so it just barely touches, and continue to let it dry. You may have to flip it over so that bottom part can dry as well. So I've got one that I've already got dried here, and kind of pick out the smoother side, or if like this part, if you wanted to cut this part out, you could do that as well. And I'm going to start with my Miriam Joy craft templates. This is an exclusive item that we sell and make here at Miriam Joy. And we want to think about how big we want that oval. And because you want to look in it, but you don't want to take too much of it away. I think that's going to be okay. I don't want it too big. And I want my point up at the top here. That's another thing I'm going to remember. So we're going to make sure our oval is kind of standing on top. And I'm going to kind of trace it with my charcoal white pencil. That is another item we sell at miriamjoy.com as well. Just to kind of get it on there. And I found out when I was working with these that these little tiny, I believe these are like manicuring scissors or fingernail scissors. These make these so much easier than just a little craft scissors, even because they're really tough and they've got this angle so that I can angle them to the left and I can cut in that direction, and it's easier than just regular scissors. If you don't have those, try your little craft scissors. And don't worry if you bend your egg a little bit or if you break a little pane section of the glass. That's okay. And we're going to get that all the way around. Alright, and if there was any strings hanging out, you'd go ahead and cut those. Now we've got our balloon there, so we're going to go ahead and pull him out, or pull him from the sides, whatever you need to do to get rid of him. And there's all kinds of fun things you can put around the edges to clean this up. We want to make sure that we do that. And I might go ahead and fill him in first and then put my edges around. Just kind of think about how big this is if you move it a lot, or if you do this where you mess it up when you try to put the grass in. There's a couple of things you want to think about. But Rick Rack, which I have on the big one, is really fun to put around the edges. I found some sequins that were on kind of a ribbon roll, or a little tiny ribbon, but I found this really cute kind of pom-pom ribbon. I found this in the Easter section at Walmart, and that's what I'm going to be using. I think that is just really cute. I love that. Now, if you squish your egg, just pop him back out. That's not a big deal. And I'm going to be using grass, but I'm going to kind of glue my grass a little bit because you don't want it so fluffy that your rabbit is going to be sinking into it. And I've got the little rabbit. We want that piece a little bit higher, and we want him a little bit higher. So I'm going to move over here to my silicone pad, and this you can find in the cooking section of your local store, Walmart, any of the stores like that. And it's cheaper, so much cheaper than the craft pads, and your hot glue gun doesn't stick to them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some glue down on my pad, and I'm going to kind of put it into my grass and kind of glue it that way and build up my grass. And we're going to let it cool a little bit, but I'm going to go ahead and build another layer kind of here. And I do have this on my hot temp. If you have it on your low temp, you're not going to have as much working time, but that may be better. So you can try it either way. And what I'm doing is building that up without being so poofy, because I still want to put my rabbit in here. And see how we've kind of got that bottom part, a nice base with that. And I'm going to probably go ahead and glue him on that base. So he's not lost in the grass, but you still have the grass around him. You can put all kinds of things. We talked a little bit about that, but even crosses. They do these in bigger ones, and they usually have the crosses and stuff in them, but you could do these in the small ones as well. And I see that this guy, I'm going to trim off the edges because those are just kind of moving all over the place. And we'll take a look at him again. Now I probably should have made my hole a little bit smaller, but maybe not, because you can see the rabbit really well there. And if it had been higher, it may not have been able to show really well. So I'm going to go ahead and put some glue down here now. And I do have that Mod Podge layer, so it's not going to leak real through unless you put a lot of that in there. So just be careful, don't put your hand directly on that area because it's still going to be warm. And you can push him down. You want to kind of get him, and then what I do, kind of line him up the way you want to, and you can still put glue in there and push that down a little bit, not too much glue, because you don't want it where the glue starts showing instead of the rabbit. I am going to put some more glue underneath him, directly underneath him, so that'll go through and hopefully secure him down to the bottom a little bit better. And again, we talked about, would it be better to do this first or this first? And he's going to wiggle a little bit, so maybe the other part first. But I really don't want to get the glue on our trim. So I'm going to set him aside a little bit, and we're going to talk about our bases. And I go to the thrift stores and pick up different size bases, and these are from the dollar stores. You can pick up usually their regular item that they carry. The only problem I don't like is they don't have different sizes. They're all one sizes. So I go to the thrift store and pick up different sizes, and that's a good way to do that. Now, one of the things that I kind of like to do is I kind of like to have some of my grass hanging down and off into the piece itself before I put the egg on it, so it looks like the egg is sitting in the grass. So I'm just going to put a little bit of hot glue in there, not too much, and we're just going to put that on and kind of just stick that in there a little bit and hang that out. Now another thing you can do is you can take the grass and put it underneath. And if you have some of those small little Easter eggs, you can put some of those under there, and that just adds that much more fun to the piece. So we've got this guy, so let's go ahead and decorate him. And I'm going to, again, use the little white pom-poms that I have. And I'm going to start at the bottom and end at the bottom. That way you can put the bow there. If you want it at the top, then you could put your bow up at the top. That's fine as well. Now, I'd usually go the other direction, but it lays better this one direction, better than the other direction. So I'm going to just do him that way. You don't want your ovals so sharp that they almost come to a point up at the top. And you want them wide enough that you can see what is in the middle. And I don't want that grass there. And kind of make that, kind of get that laying nice and even. And you don't want your egg to show through. If it does, just come in and trim that, or like this guy right here needs to be glued down a little bit better right there. So there's a lot of ways you can make that a little bit more nice. And we'll finish up this last little guy here. You could put flowers in here. It's just unlimited, all the different fun things that you could put in here. Watch what goes on clearance this year. Use it next year for Easter. And we want to cut that right kind of where that one pom-pom starts and the other pom-pom ends. So those join together real nice there. I have a little bit of trim work I need to do here. Just to get that nice and even. And I'm probably going to have to go in and glue that down just a little bit more. And that's just fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Get our little rabbit back up there. And then you can go ahead and glue a bow on the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and glue him on to the base. So we're kind of going to go onto this glue a little bit, and that's okay. And we're going to make sure that when we set our egg down that we look at it from different directions. I had mine first time, it looked straight from the front, but I looked from the side and it was kind of crooked. So you kind of want to look at it from all angles when you're doing that. And I'm going to kind of put it right above where it's going to hit the glass. And you can kind of see it shrivel up, and that is okay. Now, see how that's kind of tipping way back there? I want it more straight up, and you would not know that unless you kind of look at it from different angles. And you also could do this again before you put anything in the middle if you wanted to, and that way you could put your fingers down there. Just be careful, that's going to be hot, and kind of work with that and secure that as well. Let's see how precious that is already. And I think I'm going to put a little bow here, but I want to talk to you about what I did on the big one. So when I was doing the strings on the big one, I would just cut off a certain length and wrap like yellow, and then I cut off a certain length and I do pink, cut off a certain length and do blue, and then go back to the yellow and back to the blue and back to the pink. So it's all kind of interwoven, so you don't look at it and say, oh, the blue was on the bottom and the pink was on top. So you have all of these different colors. Now what I did different with this one is I put a bow on the top, and I just put a little cherry blossom up on top there and kind of glued my bow down here. I glued the bow here, but I glued it off-centered so that it wasn't so symmetrical. I took the little cherry blossoms and I cut them and I just bent them a little bit to kind of go around the corner of the glass part itself and just glue that on between the glass and the grass, and that because you've got the grass, it's going to hold it in place. If it was just the glass, it wouldn't. I did one coming this way and another one coming this way. So again, you've got 3, so it's not all even and it looks more pleasing to the eye. For this little guy, I could have had a bigger balloon and it probably would have been a little bit better, but that's okay. So I'm going to go ahead and just finish adding up a few details on him, and then we'll talk about him at the end. I went ahead and added a little pink ribbon with a little ribbon rosette at the bottom, which I thought was really cute. We also added our little butterfly, and these are an item that we do have, so check our website at miriamjoy.com for those. But see how sweet that turned out, and that's just really, really cute. I also wanted to show you a, this is done the same way, only while the Mosh Paws was drying, I put the glitter on top, which I really, really like. I think that even gives it more of a glassy kind of look. So make sure you look at that and see if you want to do yours that way. I've also got a video on stained glass string eggs, so check those out as well. Make sure you give us a thumbs up on YouTube and subscribe to us so that you can be sure to catch all of our latest videos as we have them coming out for you today. Thank you so much. Have a blessed Easter.